This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 935, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you. My name is Connor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
We're keeping it tight, Connor.
And this is iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 935. And every week, one of us takes the book they like the best from their stack of comics. We call that book the Pick of the Week. We're going to talk about that book, other books in the week, the Patron Pick, listener mail. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a tightly run ship on this holiday week in which we were trying to record in between other things. So
holidays seem restful, but there's always a price to pay.
No long tangents about G.I. Joe this week.
I don't know that I can promise that.
Here's your spoiler warning. This is a review show. Exercise some caution. Josh, you had the pick of the week this week.
Not a great week. And so not a great week doesn't mean in your
life or just in general or comics or
it's not a bad week, very busy week.
Get into your problems.
I talked to you about, you know what? I'd probably talk to everybody about it. We all know me. It's kind of smallish week of comics, and this isn't me justifying, explaining to you. It's me working it out. Like, all right, how does this process work? And when it's not a great week, you have to put a little more thought into like, okay, well, what is it that can deserve this? And I will tell you that the pick of the week is Scarlett number 2. I recognize that very recently Scarlett number 1 was the pick of the week. I don't like to do this.
Right.
That's right away. I read it. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I really hope that's not pick again. Because what else do I have to say about a G.I. Joe book at this point? Like, you're at home and you're going, oh, they're going to do this again. I'm with you. We also crave, I was going to say diversity, but that's a different term. But yes, diversity.
Diversity of picks.
Yes, of content, of conversation. And, but we are, like, there weren't any other books I read that I could particularly say, like, I really liked everything about that.
Yeah. It was a very odd week, for sure.
It was a strange week. It was like a fifth week, but
it felt
not.
Yes, it felt like a fifth week, even though it was week 1. It was odd, very odd. Yep.
So after a page or two of remembering where we had left off with this story, we've got Scarlett or Shanna O'Hara, which, by the way, if you could call it racism against Irish people, that is a racist name for an Irish American person. Shanna O'Hara.
Well, yeah, I mean,
her redheaded pale ass shouldn't be anywhere near the sun, let alone a ninja encampment. So she's captured by the Arashikage, and it's so that she can save her friend Jinx. This concoction of a relationship and history between Jinx and Scarlett is new to this continuity, and I'm 100% okay with it. I think I like it a lot because it shows another side to these characters that I think works really well. That they're normal adult women who happen to be soldiers and ninjas and spies and extremely capable people.
That's totally normal. I mean, half my friends are. That's how you describe them.
If they were, you wouldn't know. You'd be like,
true.
Wow, I never saw that. Like, that's the whole point. Like a ninja, you'd be like, oh shit, I never had any idea. And that's because they're good at ninja.
Right.
Okay.
The bad ones are dead.
She makes her way to we've seen this many times. We've seen Batman do this. They make their way to the secret redoubt of the martial arts masters or whatever, and they're captured and they are forced to, prove their mettle. And so that's kind of what we have here is that she's been captured. There's a grisly fucking moment on page 2 where they've taken her lockpick that she had in her mouth, and I'm trying to do the physics on how that worked, and I don't want to. And then she opens.
Like magicians would do that. They would create a little pocket in their mouth, and then they would, just keep things hidden in there.
Though? I bite my cheek all the time.
Inside the cheek? I don't know, man.
I guess
they're magicians and we're not.
So then she opens a fresh wound on her abdomen and pulls out a double-sided straight razor blade.
Which seems like maybe just make it a one-sided razor blade so it doesn't cut you on the way going in and coming out.
The safety razor is named such for a reason. Like, and that it wasn't in a packet.
No,
it was just cutting her anyway.
Anything, just cut, bleeding
whatever.
everywhere.
This is like high-end adventure fiction, and you go with it, and it made its point. I think. Cuts her way out. I'm not going to just tell you the whole story, but like this is sort of immediately we are in this situation. It is tense. It is fraught right from the beginning. There's a big ninja fight in the middle of this ninja fight. And I'm going to come back around to this. I went, oh, Frank Miller. And that really was the moment for me where I mean, it's one thing to be like, wow, this looks like Frank Miller, but I thought this is the perfect place to reflect that work and what it means in comics, given when these characters come from, blah, blah, blah. There's a big ninja fight. And then, the Hard Master comes out. We get another background on, I didn't even mention Storm Shadow. We get another background on Stinks. Scarlett and Jinx.
Hey, that's their roommate name.
There you go.
Stinks.
They do have a secret code thing.
Which I haven't been able to figure out. She keeps saying like Jinx left me a message, and there's like a closable wall, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Apparently, I can't see the message.
Just buy it. Like this.
No, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. Just
right.
The first issue, I thought it was like a mistake. Like they're trying to show me something. It happened again. I was like, okay, it's me. Not a problem.
There's a strong suspension of disbelief requirement for this, and it's set at a very high level, and as long as you accept it for the whole thing, you're good. Which, as people who grew up reading these comics and watching these cartoons, that's something we're used to. That's fine. Like, you couldn't read this like, that doesn't make sense, because then you'd be an asshole and it wouldn't be any fun. It leads her on, basically they needed to prove her worth, so they send her as an expendable person on a secret mission to a building for some plans. I don't know. A weapon. There's the weapon of the Arashikage. And, you have your Mission Impossible scene, and the last thing that we see is it's going wrong. And that's where we left off. It is a very tight, very clear, very suspenseful and tense, situation. And I think it was handled really well. I think the craft was very high. In terms of what this story needed to be. And it is new and familiar at the same time. And I really love that.
In that Frank Miller ninja fight scene where she's just brutally killing all these ninjas.
Yes.
The scene where she jumps and lands sideways on the glass wall and then jumps down and stabs the ninja. But then later in the page, we see her bloody half footprint and Storm Shadow. That's a great sequence and the great page. I don't think I've ever seen bloody footprints like that. And then there's like a little joke with Storm Shadow. It was a really terrific sequence. It was really well done.
And then, Storm Shadow sort of walks in and you don't know what is going to happen. Like, I'm like, oh God, is she going to have to fight him now? Which I thought, that would be a little quick, but whatever, but it's nice. Like, come with me. And she's like, okay. Like everybody is playing their part, and when you're a kid and you're reading this stuff, you just sort of take it for granted. You're like, wow, these people are just tough, and that's how people are. But because we are getting her, inner monologue, that she's playing a part, and Jinx is playing a part, and that Storm Shadow is playing a part. And so that there's a lot of sort of, I think this is the thing that makes this better, or at least, you can read it on a couple levels, basically. But there's a big subtext going on here that's really interesting in its mystery. It's not that they're just explaining it. Like, there's a whole game going on here that we are only seeing a part of. And again, this is a case of trusting your storyteller that there will be something to this. But I've been reading Kelly Thompson long enough that I know that there's a story in here, and it's being rolled out in a certain way.
And it's also just a larger meta story happening between all the books.
Yeah, that too.
That leads to the whole new G.I. Joe series that was announced this past week, which we we're speculating whether that would happen or not. It clearly had to. So we're sort of getting the lay of the land that leads up to this world. I mean, G.I. Joe technically exists, I think, in this book. It did Duke. It was being formed. But it really isn't what we know it to be yet. And so we're still getting there. We're still laying the groundwork and seeing how everything's different. I mean, this is not new territory.
No.
When IDW had its own Joe continuity, they had the G.I. Joe book, they had G.I. Joe Origins, they had G.I. Joe Cobra. We deal with the same thing, where it's an alternate continuity. Things were slightly different. And it's fun that way. It's like a G.I. Joe, I don't want to say multiverse, but it's almost like a Elseworlds G.I. Joe. And it's fun to see how things are different.
Mm-hmm. I had a heck of a lot of fun. I think it was really well rendered in terms of, I really like the art. And when I say Frank Miller, It wasn't like this guy's cribbing Frank Miller.
No.
It doesn't look like it, but those fight scenes, there's, what are we on, page 8? I know this is like a tiny thing, but there's in the second panel, there's like 2 ninjas who are jumping, and they're both coming out of frame. And my first thought, I was like, that looks like it's straight out of those first couple of Ninja Turtles comics. And then I thought, oh, that's Ronin, or and then I thought, oh, that's Lone Wolf and Cub. But I like that. Like, that to me says that the people know what they're doing here. You know, that it's thoughtful, and it's not like this is a bad example. It's not like is it Jorge Jimenez? Fernandez? Yeah, the one who everyone was like, that was just like David Mazzucchelli.
Oh, Jorge Fornes.
Jorge Fornes, thank you. Yep. There are many Jorges.
Yes.
And, like, it was indicative of it, but clearly that person had its own style. It wasn't just, ripping off a style, but being part of a legacy of a thing. And that's a very ambiguous line to be like, this is okay, this isn't. But for me, it really worked. And recognizing that, I just really, I enjoyed that. I think the coloring was a really, I don't know, it was nicely muted. In a way that really gave us the colors. Yeah,
we talked about it last time, but I think it looked better this issue. I thought the
Lee Lowridge on colors. I mean, that guy's a vet, a legend, a great, sort of, I know him from Vertigo in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, that guy's a great, and then Marco Ferrari just doing exactly what he's supposed to, making it work.
So as Blood Hunt, the Marvel event, is wrapping up, we have the start. Well, the official kickoff of Absolute Power, the DC event with Absolute Power #1. We've had lead up issues. We had a really boring special issue last week, but now we've got the first main issue written by Mark Waid and art by Dan Mora, and I'm into it. It's the first issue, so things could go horribly wrong. But I was not into Lazarus Planet from the very beginning. Which was the Beast Wars. I'm not, like, from the very beginning, I was like, no, this is not for me. Whereas this, like, yes, we all are sick of Amanda Waller. Yes, we are all sick of Peacemaker. However, this actually feels like this is like a fun, interesting event with high stakes. As high as you can possibly do without, the heroes never losing.
And let me take something back, is that very recently, Amanda Waller was in something we talked about, and I was like, I don't get her deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think I get her deal. Like, I understand it's very clear what her goal is now, and how she is a person who thinks she's doing the good thing and the right thing. And, we know she's positioned as the bad guy here, but she's not outright evil. She's not like she doesn't think she's the bad guy. She's not trying to take over the world. She's not, whatever, Kang. Like, she thinks she's doing the right thing, but she's sociopathic and egotistical and all that stuff, and she's the bad guy, but she thinks superpowers are harmful to the world and wants to get rid of them, in the grand tradition of comic book bureaucrats everywhere.
Right. And it's interesting because everything you just said is right. What my thought reading this was, I don't know how you come back from this if you're her. What I mean is, like, I don't know how you, as DC, bring her back as a nebulous character who sometimes works with the heroes after this story. I mean, it opens up with,
that'll be the trick,
her agents shooting Superman her agents causing Superman to get shot in the chest twice and then fall from the sky. Like, I don't know how you come back from that as a character. It'll be interesting, because I was like, wow, they're really just sort of going for it with her here, where it's
Lex Luthor was president.
Sure. Yes. I mean, you're absolutely right. But I just that sort of shows how sort of, they're going for it with this, with her villainy. And so it was, and I had a visceral reaction to it. I mean, that opening scene is, Superman falling from the sky after being shot is powerful. And it doesn't hurt that Dan Mora draws this entire book, which I don't know.
And he's doing this. And also, like, there's levels that people do things. And the issues that he did of Shazam and the issues that he did of Batman and Superman were great. But this is the one where he's like, I got to bring my full Brian Hitch / Kubert event. Führer, which isn't hurt by, the color and just the production of it, but it, you can see it here on the page. Like, it's a little extra in a good way.
It's amazing. It's one of the best looking book of the week. It was just, I mean, every panel is chock full of the Alejandro Sanchez colors, and it's just, just a gorgeous. This is what you want an event book to look like and feel like. You want it to feel like a big deal, and it just did partially because of the talent on it, and just the story feels big, and so the whole thing is that, and this has been happening in the background in other books. It's been happening in the Green Arrow book, which, a book like this doesn't have time to explain everything, but like I said, it doesn't explain at all why Green Arrow's on her side, although that's been happening in his book. And I can't remember if he's being blackmailed into it or not. I honestly just don't remember. But they found a way to neutralize all the powers of the heroes, and also she had Green Arrow steal and this is where this comes back to haunt us, the records from the Heroes in Crisis book. So all the confessionals.
I love that
they made.
I love it.
He went and stole the hard drive, basically. So she has all their secrets. She knows all their pain, and has developed this technology where when you get shot with it, you lose your powers. And so all the heroes are basically powerless now in this world, in this part of the, this won't show in every other book, but in this world, of absolute power, they're all powerless. And she has the fail-safe Batman, which is the robot Batman from the Chip Zdarsky run, which is basically like Batman without any conscience or Bruce Wayne in him. And then some other characters also on her side. And she has some other people. And so it was big and fun. Everybody was in it. There's tons of characters. And
I think what's interesting about that is that it shows the level of craftsmanship. And it sometimes is difficult to put your finger on, but I understood all those things in this book, having not read any of those things. I was like, oh, it's an AI Batman that is like a supercomputer that works just like Batman, but isn't Batman. Right. You can use it for bad stuff. My instinct is always like, oh, Green Arrow's going to do that. And I get mad at it. Like you were talking about, I was like, fuck that. But also knowing that character, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. Right. Like I can. And also they've been seeding it for quite a while. I mean, he was on Checkmate. He was on... Yeah. That's been there. And whenever you read into those things, like they don't not make sense. It's not my favorite thing, but people do things that are not your favorite when you like them. And he's cantankerous.
Yeah, that's always been a case with him throughout the decades of Green Arrow, is that he's often at odds with the other heroes because of his political leanings or beliefs. And
lefty.
It was funny though. There was the first scene we see Batman and Robin. Dan Mora draws a much aged up Damian, or I thought it was Tim, because he looks like he's about 18. Mm-hmm. But it's Damian. Doesn't matter. It's just funny. I was like, oh, interesting, but it wasn't him.
I think I had that same thought. And this is like, this is happening. This is in continuity. This is.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the backup. This is the event. It's been seeded through the Green Arrow book. It's been some other books. The backup story in Batman 150, which we're going to talk about next, takes place, as a tie-in to this. So I've been enjoying Blood Hunt. It's almost over. So one issue left. I think it's been a successfully fun, universe-wide story. Not every chapter has been good. I thought every chapter this week was bad, every tie-in, but at least not Doctor Strange, but the ones that were labeled Blood Hunt in the cover. I read 3 or 4. They were all kind of boring, but overall fun, which I haven't been able to say in a while, and I don't know why my voice cracked there. But so I'm hoping this also just has a good time being a universe-wide event. So we'll see.
I do have to point this out. When Green Arrow showed up and said that, I went, "Oh, it's their Civil War." I mean, it is kind of, and
it's only
that's
him.
So far. I mean, but it's still like, you're choosing a side. Superheroes bad, superheroes good. Right. And it's not a criticism. These are the cyclical kinds of stories that exist in here. But I was, all right, this is their sort of version of that. Twisted enough so that, but you recognize the themes, certainly. Like these people
I do think it's hilarious that, because it's Mark Waid. When Captain Marvel shows up, he's called the Captain, right? Which is fine. Mm-hmm. But he's with Mary Marvel. So I was like, it's the Captain and Mary Marvel. I was like, come on, guys.
You're right. I hadn't noticed that. It's true. I love that. That's a little bit of like, all right, you want this, then this is going to happen. You didn't say anything about her,
But I get it. His name is exactly the one as a woman starring in blockbuster movies. But still, it's just so fucking silly. Anyway, I had fun reading this, even if I did. I don't know. I honestly don't know what I would have made my pick of the week. I was reading comics desperately in between drinking and dinner. And so I don't even know, but I did have fun reading this. I thought it looked terrific, just beautiful.
I had fun. I didn't.
It should be fun. It shouldn't necessarily blow your mind. It should be fun.
I didn't love it. But again, it was a weird week. But like I respect it. It's here. I'm gonna read the stuff.
And I was
really
thinking
well
back
done.
to like the ones that I think have been the successful events, not like your crises or whatever, because those are really sort of in a level all their own. But I remember just I don't know. We have to move on. I remember distinctly reading Infinity Gauntlet #1. I remember picking it up. I remember where I was. I remember West Side Comics on 87th 6th Street, buying it, reading it, and there was tons of things where like, wait, I don't understand what's happening. Like, why is that? Like, they don't have time to give you all the information, all the backstory. Mm-hmm. They have to just sort of move forward. And so this is the same feeling of that, where you just plow forward and do the best you can. And I think that was successful in this book. Let's talk about Batman 150, which is still Chip Zdarsky writing it. And I wanted to talk, because there's a absolute power backstory of it, which I guess we could talk about. But mostly I just wanted to talk about the fact that the main thrust of this issue is a Denys Cowan drawn, basically one and done issue of the kind we just don't get anymore. And that's why I was excited for it, because it was just basically, it wasn't like an anniversary issue, even though they could have done that, but it was just a henchman who has found out Batman's identity, and because when he was working with Catwoman, and he wants to sell the information, and all the ways that goes wrong. I thought that was just like such a throwback that we just never get these one-shot stories that just take place on the ground. There's no world-shattering event here. It's just this one hapless dude who wants to make the big score, but is in way over his head. And I was really appreciative of that kind of book, because you just don't get it anymore.
I didn't read it, but I looked through it, and it took me a second. I was like, all right, Denys Cowan. That's pretty good. I was wondering, you put it on here, and I was like, oh man, he's willing to talk about Batman again. So there's like a recovery redemption moment here for you, which I think is nice.
Well, there's the last issue reset the board, so it's time to jump back into it and give it a chance again. But
it's very interesting to have the same writer, after that, and then a major change. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not usual. Usually, like you set a whole thing, and then you either show a way out of it, or you reset it, and then somebody comes and takes over. But he's going to go a different direction, which is interesting, because didn't love that last direction, from what I understand. And so and you're like, this guy's really good though. So why don't we do? What else can he do? And now you're going to get a chance to see, which is neat.
Yep. I hope so, because we did like his work. We do like his work a lot, but we liked his Batman work quite a bit in that miniseries he did, and so hopefully it feels more like that. But anyway, and it was just really fun to read that story. Denys Cowan is like a legend in the business. He's got a very unique style that not everybody likes, but I like it. It's very gritty. It's very unique. Didn't he used to always get inked by Sienkiewicz for a while? Like the two of them together was a really good combination.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
And the flashbacks are by Jorge Jimenez, in the flashbacks in the story. I thought it was just a really fun. If you're like someone who's always like, why don't they just do one-shot stories? Like, this is one of them. I thought very satisfying. Then the backup was a Mike Hawthorne drawn Absolute Power tie-in, which the cover of this issue says Absolute Power across the top, but it's really only the backup that's Absolute Power. And it actually reveals some things that haven't been revealed yet in the actual miniseries. But it's just, him fighting one of the Amazos. We didn't mention that in the last discussion, but the Amazos are part of the whole army of Amanda Waller. But anyway, I just thought this was a very enjoyable issue because of the two stories.
We are moving on to Doctor Strange, 443, or number 17, as you might see it on there. This is the only Blood Hunt story. And it's funny because, like, this doesn't seem to be leading with the Blood Hunt bit, like on the cover. I don't know if it's there, but it feels like major things happen in this story, sort of outside of the main series, and they're very tied into what's happening. And this is a weird issue. That's what I thought. Is my point.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, here's just this tiny story happening within the Blood Hunt world, right? Which is basically the fight over Doctor Strange's body.
Yes.
And so I think that's been fun.
I mean, so what? okay, so basically there's a god of this and a god of that, and they have powers and whatever. And what's the dog's name? I can't. It just left me. So the ghost basset hound, whose name has completely escaped me as I open this, although I know
Bark
it very
or
well.
something.
Yes, it's Bark. He decides that there's a Bartholomew. He decides that there is. Wait a minute. There's probably a god of dogs, and
Right.
and so he he gives him the bats. That's what it was. I was thinking.
Well, the whole thing is that
bats.
Doctor Strange was separated from his body in the very beginning of Blood Hunt, right? Because he got bit by Blade, and so in order to save him, Clea took his soul, his spirit, his astral plane self out of his body, and he's been existing the whole time in on the astral plane. And so then that allowed his brother, who I
Victor.
forgot all about this, was also a vampire and was like being held in the Sanctum Sanctorum to inhabit Doctor Strange's body. And this has been the fight of all the other people left to Wong, bats, those weird snakes, fighting to get the body back. That's been the whole overall story throughout Blood Hunt in the Doctor Strange books. And this is the culmination of all that. And so, Mordo too.
And Bats goes to get Mordo and the deal is that like Mordo doesn't want anybody to defeat Strange. He'll have to, so he has to save Strange in some lovely comic book logic.
Yeah.
And it causes Bats to sort of come up with this god of dogs, and Bats, you are a good boy, and gives him the power. And they not only pull Victor Strange out of the vampire body, but then somewhat conveniently cure the body of vampirism. Hey. And I thought, well, why don't they just do that everywhere else?
The god of dogs only wants to do it once.
Like on the one hand, and they said like, oh, you can't handle my power, we're taking out of you, and it's Ghost Dog and whatever. I just, there was a little part of me was like, why don't you just like this is the solution, but they're going to keep it here, I assume, because that can't be the solution for everybody.
Totally.
But I was like, fine, wrap it up in there. I thought it hit me a little, but. The god of dogs. Listen, I love dogs. I think they are a perfect good. I think that we run the risk in comic books of taking a thing like that and plugging it into some of these comics in a way that it's a little fun, but this maybe overstepped it a little bit. In like, I like dogs, and so there's that. Like, once is fine. I don't want to get it, but
There's been a definite increase in you're a good boy dog stuff in comics. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think coincides with it being all over social media, and then creators who spend all their time on social media start putting it into their work. And it's just
and like as a post-pandemic thing, the dogs were very important to us during that period, I think. And so like but all of it comes together and is kind of zeitgeisty thing. But a little part of me was like, I don't think Steve Ditko would like this. Which doesn't necessarily. I was going to say really didn't like a lot of things, but I just felt I was like, I don't know, this feels a little further away from where we want to be with Doctor Strange and such. And I'm not saying get rid of the character or whatever. I'm just like, ooh, just tone it back a little bit. It's fine. I'm not really complaining. I just noticed it. I was like, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's not. I love a dog, but peanut butter and chocolate. That worked. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'll go through this really quickly. So if you like what we do and you enjoy the show and it brings you some joy and it makes your comic book reading life better, please consider supporting us. We talked about this last week to a large extent, but you help keep the lights on, you help keep the show going, help pay the bills. The best way to do it is patreon.com/iFanboy. You get great rewards there. You get to be part of a great community. Discord, Facebook. We have a monthly patron hangout. You get merchandise that only you can get. And you can get 10% off a yearly membership if you pay all at once versus monthly. It's great stuff happening there. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Also, iFanboy.threadless.com. We have 13 designs on t-shirts and other merchandise. They have every American holiday. There's a sale. They just had one for July 4th. We really like those designs. We have a couple we're talking about, but we're in the early stages and we're also super busy. It's just hard to deal with. It's the least important thing. But those are coming eventually, but you can check those out there. iFanboy.com/supports, our digital PayPal tip jar. iFanboy.com/Amazon is our general shopping link for Amazon. If you're making the Amazon purchases, you can do it through there, and it helps us out. You can also find our Booksplode books there. And bookshop.org is our partnership with independent bookstores that if you click through there at a small bookstore, privately, independently owned, will fulfill your order, ship it to you. And we thank you very much. Those links will be found on our Booksplode show links, or show posts, whatever they're called. So thank you very much. We do appreciate that. And everyone who helps us out is a very important person. So I just wanted to briefly mention Justice Society of America number 10, because I mean, I've given up on following this book. It's like 4 to 5 months between issues. It's Jeff Johns, Michael Janin, Marco Santucci. But I love the Justice Society. I love Jeff Johns writing DC, so I still read it. I wanted to mention this book because did you read this?
I did, and it was interesting is that I put it on my list, and then I was like, I think I stopped reading this, but I couldn't remember, and I just thought,
Right.
well, I'll catch back up with it because it's a hell of a good looking book, and, I like.
I mean, issue to issue. Anyway, my point is this: there's a scene in the beginning in which with the League of Substitute Heroes, the Legion of Substitute Heroes, which is like the rejects from the Legion of Superheroes, and it's basically a gathering of patron powers. So it's like Fire Lad. Breathes fire with moderate control at best. Rainbow Girl wields the power of a mysterious emotional spectrum resulting in unpredictable mood swings. Stone Boy, he turns to stone but can't move. I think we've given that power away. Chlorophyll Kid can manipulate plant growth. We've definitely given away that power. Claims he can communicate with them, but he cannot. Like it was just funny because that one double page spread was just like a string of patrons, and I just thought that was funny. We're not going to sue Jeff Johns.
I mean, Jeff Johns has been like vomiting superpowers and new characters now for a couple of years, and he like his whole new line is just like, here's more characters, and here's like this one's thing. Like if I knew him and like I and his private life, like it's okay, John's like this one could turn glass into like just constant.
I do want to say it was a good issue actually. With the bad guy on the team who kills Hawkman to save the day because knowing Hawkman will be reincarnated. Like I thought it was a really smart.
Drew, who is not to be. It's Morgan Le Fay's son. You may remember him as a bad guy from Excalibur. That was I thought that was nice.
It was actually a good issue, even if I don't remember the overall story because we get 1 or 2 a year. But I think there's only going to be 2 more, so whatever. All the things we didn't do last night from Maria Lovelet. We talked about her recently. She did the sexy college thriller.
The app
book, whatever that was called.
Talk about her new book when I'll tell you.
This is a one-shot, oversized story. She said in the back that she had the idea. She thought about doing this as a miniseries. It ended up just being a oversized one-shot about 2 criminals who find each other and fall in love. It's basically a woman working at a museum who's been stealing pieces out of it, and then an assassin who is there to kill someone at the museum, and they ended up.
She's just borrowing them and sleeping with them and putting them back, though. Yeah, she's not on the same level.
No, that's not true. Yeah,
Crave. Crave is the name of the app and the series.
I thought this was. I mean, we just don't get these stories in like mainstream, major American comic book companies. Image. This is another Image book, and I just like it. I like that we get these sort of sexy thriller books from her that we just don't get elsewhere.
I thought it was fine.
I think it was great, but I thought it was enjoyable.
The characters were a little cookie cutter for me. It was the only.
I think that's the consequence of not being able to delve into them more than for one issue.
Yeah, like it was more about being cool than. I mean, it wasn't unlike. It was like the opposite.
I assume everyone in Italy's like that, though.
True romance, like kind of thing.
That's Italy. They're in Spain.
Is Alabama just a hallucination? Is the question.
They're in Spain, not Italy. I don't know.
I had forgotten that Public Domain was a comic book. And number 6 came out, and I was like, "Oh, I like this book." And then I was like, "Oh, some time has passed."
Speaking of books that just don't, I don't even remember when the last one came out.
No,
but I think it was 2 years ago. I think I looked it up.
You're kidding me.
No help, no recap page, no nothing.
I literally opened it up and I started reading. I was like, you know what? And I went back to the first page and I was like, this is the perfect place. And I think that it's giving readers way too much credit and the state of the world and everybody's brains that they're going to think I'm going to have loved this so much that I don't need a refresher.
Issue 5 came out in October 2022.
Like, say that you had all the issues physically.
Mm-hmm.
If it was 2 years ago, where'd you even go to find the damn thing? I mean, I get it. Comic people are obsessive, but like,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, put a little effort into that. And I say that from the fact I really like this comic book.
Yeah.
I like this comic book an awful lot, but that's a disservice. I think they owe the reader.
I really thought, okay, we're going to get a recap page because it's been a long time. And we go right into it. It's nope. And I slowly remembered what was happening, who everybody was. But the problem is you don't want to spend 3/4 of the book trying to remember what came before and not really focus
Even
on what's
House of the
happening.
Dragon tried.
Done not very well, but they tried.
No.
So this is a story not by Chip Zdarsky. It's about comic book people making comics. And the whole thing was the first arc was the dad trying to get the rights to his character back. And it's he's sort of a Kirby-esque character. There's a Stanley-esque guy who has on the other side of things working for the man. You know, it's a whole big thing. And I'm being very vague because I don't really remember the details. Other than
you got the one kid who it looks and I think is sort of Chip Zdarsky in this, and he wants to be a writer, but like many people who say they want to be a writer, he's not really writing anything, and he never will. He's got a problem. He's snobby about his dad's work. His brother is like a stoner, great artist, tattoo guy, you know. And by the main character, the one who looks like Chip Zdarsky, or my idea of him anyway, he's awful. Like, and you know, like he's like, we know it, like he's terrible. And he's like, oh, actually, she's going to write it because he can't follow through on anything and he's useless. There's an interesting conversation in this one about representation in comics and how it works. And
I was with the dad.
I know you were.
Well, the whole thing was getting his character back, and they finally get it back and like, let's completely change him. It's like, well, that's not what we were doing.
I just thought it was weird that I thought it was sort of even-handed in a way, except we know which way it goes. And I think you're right. Like, I think there needed to be a little more of like, well, there's this, you know.
They were completely dismissing his emotional reaction to finally getting the ownership back on his character he created. And they were like, yeah, but we're going to change him completely and make him a woman or, you know, and it's just like, whoa. Can we talk about this? They're like, nope. And it was just like, I was like, wow, they just totally dismissing this guy's decades-long struggle to get his IP back. And they're just being dicks about it. But
it's true. And I don't think that he came across as a fuddy-duddy bad guy. I really liked...
No. He was just very confused. Like, what the fuck are we doing? I thought we were making my character.
Although it was a very good of like, oh, I think the world just left me behind, which to me says... and I really like the scene between him and his rival ex-partner and the editor woman that took place in her apartment.
Karen Berger. Yeah. Then there's like a Grant Morrison-esque guy that comes in.
That was 100% Grant Morrison. Boy, there's a lot in this issue, wasn't there?
He's going to co-write with the Stan Lee character at the official company. Like, it's all very confusing if you don't remember the details, but there's a lot. There was a lot going on here, and a lot of analogs to comic people.
That was I was going to ask you. I was like, that's Grant Morrison, right? That's got to be. It was a little like, ugh, a little disrespectful to Grant Morrison, but whatever.
So those are the comics we're going to talk about. It was kind of a light week, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. And this week, the winner was Free Agents #1, and not Fear Agents as I named the file. Free Agents #1 from Image Comics, written by, well, we'll get into who wrote it. Art by Stephen Mooney, colors by Triona Tree Farrell. Letters by Richard Stark and Tyler Smith. After reading this issue, I was actively rooting against it because I did not want to talk about it.
I wanted to talk about it.
I did not want to talk about this book.
I read it.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Had I not had to talk about it, I wouldn't have made it.
This was really terrible, and we adore Kurt Busiek.
Yes, on every level.
This book, and then I think it was confirmed by the essay in the back. I think was written by Fabian Nicieza. I think Kurt Busiek came up with the idea with him, sort of helped him plot it. But this does not read at all 0% like a Kurt Busiek book.
No,
and at the end, the essay by Fabian says, "Kurt called me with an idea. We came up with the idea, and here we are." And I just felt like, well, he's taking total ownership of this book. I think he actually scripted it because it did not read at all.
It read like what Marvel and DC's reactions were to Image Comics launching.
Mm.
It was like, we're going to try to do what they do, but it was ham-handed
Yep.
and chock full of cliches and like old tropes. When I say old, I mean like 90s, 80s. Like it was like a hodgepodge of all these things that at the end, like, I can tell you what happened, sort of, but there was nothing. There was no hook.
Nothing.
There was nothing funny. There was nothing modern or throwbacky. The characters were kind of all. I was looking at the art as we went through it, and Stephen Moody's not old. He's I think he's an Irish artist, but like everybody kind of looked like they dressed like we did when it was in the early 2000s. Like there was, I don't know what world it was in. It just
But also,
seemed like
everyone's face completely changed from panel to panel. Not in a Tracy way, but just in the models of these are all off. And
and you didn't know. Well, there's one of the characters, and she's red, and she was dancing, and then we kind of see that she turns into a three-fingered red lady.
right.
But I had to go back and check that.
I didn't think the art was very good. I mean, I couldn't. I don't know if I can properly tell you the plot of this book, but all I know is it opens up with this team called the 10, and we're rapidly introduced to 10 characters. And I was like, could you have made it 5? Because 10's a lot, and you don't give me anything to remember any of them by.
And they were all like just sort of basic cookie cutter kind of. I mean, the idea is basically they're soldiers in an intergalactic war, and the war is over, and so they've come to Earth to just live their lives normally. But it was very, it was a bad comic book. It was a bad comic book immediately in such a way that a couple of pages in, I was like, this can't be salvaged. I don't see it happening.
I think I put this down 4 times. Like I made it a couple of pages and I would go, ugh, and I put it down, and then I'd do something else and I'd pick it up and I'd go, ugh, and I put it down. It took me forever to finish this book.
If this didn't have Kurt Busiek's name on the front of it, I wouldn't have made it past the first 2 pages. Yeah. And I hadn't thought about it the way that you did. I just thought, even the greats miss. But yeah,
I don't think he wrote this book. I feel bad. I don't like being negative on the show, but I think the negativity comes from real craft problems. I don't think this was a successfully executed book. I think it was a confusing setup. There's way too many characters. They all have sort of generic sci-fi looks to them.
Yeah.
I don't know a single person's name. I don't know why anyone's doing anything they're doing.
I'm not clear who the...
Why is the 35-year-old girl in college with the other college? Like, it's just... I didn't think it was drawn well. I didn't think it was plotted. I just thought it was a mess.
That first scene where the girl is with her college friends and then like someone flirts with the guy, and I was like, has this person ever seen a real human reaction? Because this is like a Saved by the Bell scene.
Right.
It was aggressively pedestrian.
Yeah.
It read like I think people have viewed comic books in the past who had no respect for them.
Yeah.
I was offended on behalf of the art form.
It was not a good book. And that's why after I read it and I saw it was leading the voting, I was like, oh God. And this just shows you how honest the vote is. Because if we ever cheated, I would not want to talk about this book. I would have had something else win. But that tells you how honest the vote is, because I did not want to talk about this book. I didn't want to talk about a book that had Busiek's name on it that was terrible. I would rather have ignored it. But
there's a thing in the back for Aerosmith, and I was like, oh man, that was great. I was just remembering back to it.
Yeah, and then Pacheco died, so they have stopped. I mean, I assume we'll get no more of that.
Mm-hmm.
When is supposed to be Astro City, like OGNs that were going to start coming out?
Listen, Astro City is the divorced
here it
father.
says right here. Metro Book 6 coming in September 2024.
Sure.
Oh, that's a collection. That's a collection.
I'll be by to pick you up for fishing this weekend, Billy. You just got to eventually they're going to give you what they're able to give you. And we're going to be happy with that. Honestly, we got way more Astro City in that last, 10 years than I thought I would ever see. So whatever.
Well, I think the Metro books these are hardcover collections of the series. So that's what's coming out. Whatever. They look nice. I might check those out. But Yeah, when I finally finished it, but it took way more time than I wanted to. And really, actually, I think that's why I was scrambling to finish books, because I was like, I can read like 6 books in this time I've got free. Nope, I'm going to read one.
It was extra long too.
Just bad. Yeah.
There's nothing here that says hardcover, by the way. They don't look like hardcovers. You're just wishing.
No, these Metro books. Oh, well, I guess they could be softcover compendiums. I saw this. Well, yeah. Anyway, I am wishing. Let's rate free agents.
Let's rate Fear Agents.
Talk about Fear Agents.
Fear Agents a 5.
Fear Agents is a 5. Free Agents number 1 from Image Comics, Kurt Busiek, Fabian Nicieza, Stephen Mooney, Trian Tree Farrell, Richard Stark, and Tyler Smith is a 1 out of 5.
I was going to say 2. I'll go with 1.5.
Sticking with it, no.
No. I hate saying no. That's the power of Kurt Busiek's name.
I know.
Like, maybe he can help them pull it out, but I don't want to.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron if you are, and voting every week on a patron pick, which adds a book to a rundown. Thank you very much. 40 pages.
40 pages.
If you're a patron who gives it the $5 or higher level, you get a patron power live on the show, just like the Justice Society. You can join the Legion of Substitute Heroes or whatever. I drank a lot yesterday. All right. Josh, you do it.
Kyle Franz has the ability to make you forget what you were thinking about, should he choose.
Whoa! Is he in the room with me?
Well, I was just trying to assign blame to someone else. They're about to come up and tell you something, if he wants to, a little like wink or flick of the finger or whatever it is, and it was like, hey, I wanted to.
That's a great power, actually.
What was I thinking about? It lets you get away, lets you get out of a lot of conversations, but it really is just piling up stress for later. That is going to come back to you at some point if he doesn't catch it. But he can make you forget just what you were thinking about. What was it?
Is that like a brief thing, kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi using the Force in the Stormtroopers, or is it like a permanent forget?
No, it's just a blip. Can't pull it up right then. Maybe it'll come back to him later. They'll give you a call back. I don't know, but he can just that make you forget what you were thinking about.
He's another droid you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. It works on the weaker minded.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron, Kyle. Let's.
That wasn't supposed to be a Jedi thing. I just forgot what I was thinking about, and I wrote that down.
We definitely have time for emails. We're flying through this as we try to get into the holiday spirit.
I asked for efficiency, and we got it. God damn it!
Our first email comes from Ro from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Ro says, "I've been thinking about this since 2014. What's the pettiest reason you've dropped a book? You guys kept me going during some really tough times in my life. Thanks for being there. You're welcome. We appreciate it. Hearing that, we're happy to be there for you." Petty reasons for dropping a book.
I feel like you have more of these than me. Like you would you know what? I don't like the way they did that cape. I'm out.
I mean, that does sound like me, but I don't know. I mean, we do take this seriously.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. The last time I can think of dropping a book for a reason, even in that realm, was I was really enjoying. They had many years ago. They had a book set in the the animated world, and Norm Brayfogle was the artist on it, and it was really fun. And then there was that really ill-advised thing they did in the cartoons, where in the future they had Barbara and Bruce sleep together, and they referenced that, and I was like, nope, I'm out. And that's probably the closest I can come to answering that question.
That's like our friend. Was it Jared? And
Jared would do that.
He refused to. He wouldn't play Masters of Terrascazi with us because he didn't like any game where Chewbacca and Han Solo could fight.
Right. He wouldn't play Masters of Terrascazi with us because of that.
Like pettiness versus like really misplaced strong principles are well, interesting kind of. I guess that's what pettiness is.
2 of one, half dozen of the other.
I think that there are people who I have either met or known secondhand that I did not like. And then when I can see them in that book,
you mean like a creator?
Yeah, like a creator. Like there are creators who I just decided I don't like. Personally, or if like there's one person I can think of who I didn't know and I've never met, but he said some stupid things online, not like cancelable kind of stupid things. Like he just like the way that he talked about other creators and specifically like a friend of mine. Right. And I just thought that's awful. I'm never reading a thing you write again. I don't know that that's petty.
I thought you were going to say the business card guy.
The business card guy. Well, yeah, fuck that guy. He thinks we're petty, but there was a guy. You tell the story because I can't.
You'll tell that story without saying his name, but we were at Comic-Con.
I don't remember his name.
We had iFamily business cards, and someone had given. I guess you had given him your card. It was either you or Ron. It wasn't me. And so let's just say, for sake of argument, it was you who gave him your card.
Whatever.
And then he met Ron, and he gave Ron your card. Like he said, "This is me." And he gave just get rid of your card, not knowing he was giving it to your partner / friend. So, that guy, you were just like, "Fuck that guy." And only give her the book you wrote after that.
There was another guy who incidentally doesn't make comics anymore. And we hired a party at New York Comic-Con, and he came up. Actually, this was the night I met Tom King, who was not the person I'm talking about. It was just some guy who would listen to the show when he was going to have books come out. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But at that same party, another creator, like the second that I was introduced to him, like he started going after, like, you got to read my books, man. I'm trying so hard as this. And it wasn't so much sad as I was like, this isn't inappropriate. This isn't the way to, and it really turned me off of them. Mm-hmm. Like it really, and like I did talk about the books after that, but I always remembered it. Yeah, I think that kind of covers it. I'm trying to think of petty.
I mean, petty's hard because again, we do take this thing seriously. Sure. We've been doing it for 24 years, and I've read and enjoyed books from people who have been overtly mean to me on the internet, for creators. Yes. And so I try to take the job of reviewing as serious as I can, as much as you can in this. We're all human beings, but
there's a couple of people like who are just revealed to be monsters, and I don't mean it in the way like the ones that you know about. There was one specific person, like when you hear some behind the scenes stuff, I was like, never, like I'm not ever buying that. That's a person who's again totally out of it, but I don't think it was ever sort of revealed publicly. Yeah, and of course JMS.
Well, that's your petty one. That's your petty one.
Well, it was at first.
Yes, in the beginning.
It was at first, but it has also been like it has been confirmed to me by other people that I was not wrong many. No,
I'm talking about you first dropped him because of the lateness and all that stuff. And
yeah, well, that was I didn't trust him. That wasn't just it. No, I really loved Rising Stars, and I went to a panel, and he was up there just talking, and I just thought, ugh. I can't do this. And then the lateness on top of it, it was bloviation, which, I'm older now, and I just, that's not really like a thing that bothers me, but, yeah.
Well, you were 22 at the time, so.
I know. And I thought I fucking knew everything. And now I'm like, oh, I don't know anything now. I didn't know anything then. That said,
I really didn't know anything
I've recognized a pattern in both completion of work and the way that that was one of those things where I started to see that bloviation in the comics before they lost their way and didn't get finished. And so like that's what I said, when you see the things that you didn't like about people in their comics, I can have more respect for him and whatever it is now, but and he can do good comics, but he can't finish them.
Sometimes he goes too long. Please stop.
All right, so this next one, I don't want to use the name of the person. I don't think that's but I do think that there is a little bit of a conversation in there that I want to have. So Morgan writes in, I was at a work conference recently, and one of the guys on the panel was a big shot lawyer from NYC named Bleep. I wonder if he's the father of Bleep. And I tried to track him down and ask, but I was not able to. It got me wondering how financial privilege could help people get a leg up in a creative industry like comics. And I will name this one because I don't think this is unfair and it's known. Yeah. Joe Hill son of Stephen King, is an example here. I thought it'd be interested in your thoughts on the matter, and he's been thinking about this question since he saw on a panel at a work conference recently.
Yeah, 100, of course. A financial privilege gives you a leg up in any industry, especially a creative one that doesn't pay very well. So yeah,
and it may take a long time to start to be able to make a living if you even get to that point. Absolutely.
And as long as there's been artists, there have been, having money is how, like, there's a reason why there's a stereotype of, like, take some super rich industrialist and his kid wants to be a painter or a poet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's easy to want to be those things when you don't have to worry about money. And that's also why, like, the saying goes, like, it takes 3 generations to destroy a family fortune, is because when you don't have to go to work, it's a lot easier to chase your muse and then spend all the money and never make more, and then your kids are out of luck.
I think that there are levels to this. I think that if you're an American comic book reader and you're like, boy, there sure are a lot of people who are not Americans drawing comics. Is that
Italians.
but it's South Americans, Canadians.
It goes from region to region,
and that has, I think, everything to do with universal healthcare in those places that we don't have here. And that's like a big thing that I know that for American comic book artists, like that can be really difficult.
Well, cost of living is cheaper
that too
abroad.
That too, but I think that just if you are in a situation where you can at least count on your healthcare, then you can take more risk than you would be able to here. For whatever reason.
But I know this is just from hiring Brazilians. I know this from.
No, I get it. It's cheaper too.
Colleagues in Spain and the Netherlands, like, when you can pay someone less, but for them it's a lot of money because their cost of living is so cheap. Then the company saves a lot of money.
Absolutely an element as well. But I just think of if we know Canadian comic book creators, and like that's one thing that they don't have to worry about that Americans do. That's a certain kind of just a economic element, I suppose. But I would say that in comics, I really do believe, especially as you get into mainstream, Marvel, DC, Image to a certain extent, but let's just say Marvel and DC for now. It is a meritocracy in a sense, where if you can't get the work done and you are not able to produce, compelling-ish, for the purposes of it, work over a long period of time, or command an audience, or keep up with everybody, you will not keep working in that system.
Right, but that's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about Nepo babies. He's talking about is it easier to make a living in comics if you have got money? And the answer is obviously yes.
Yes, but making a living and sort of like being a person who's still there. Like, I think that we know several people, the people of, the person named in this and others, like, they did the work, they did the reps. It wasn't like a dilettante thing. They used that advantage so that they could be able to do it and get good at it. And at a time when maybe other people wouldn't be able to survive on what they were or weren't making, and maybe that was never a thing. But I think you still, as a creator, have to be the real deal,
or
it's not going to work. And
we also know lots of people, not lots. We know several people who have spouses with high-powered corporate jobs.
Yes,
which allow them to. Yeah, don't worry about it. I make a lot of money. You can make your funny books,
and they have great healthcare or something, whichever.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really focus on the healthcare bit, but it's also it's just
the thing
pure
I hear
money.
From people.
Yeah, but it's just pure money. Like, we know people whose like spouses are VPs in giant companies, and so therefore they can afford to write, draw, letter, color comics because they don't need to bring
and often
money
that is rewarded. Eventually, like, those people actually end up making a great career. I do think it's all over the map. Like, people who want to make comics come at it from all different angles, and at the end of the day, to stick in it, you have to. I mean, it really helps to be really good at it. That's I think the most important thing. And then the second was you have to have, like, if you're not very good at it and you stick with it for years and years and years and years, we know a lot of those people too, you're masochistic, or you're just like so obsessed, you're so in love with the form. And those people can be all types of economic people. I've seen it up and down. Like, some people are willing to live with nothing, for the longest time, which is like not an option for other people who have families, all sorts of stuff. You know, it's still kind of an inborn advantage, just like having talent or drive or whatever it is. It's sort of a circumstance of who people are. But I don't get this.
It's any creative industry. I know a lot of actors here in LA.
Sure.
I'm putting actors in quotes, who are here and not working, but their parents are footing the bill.
Right.
And someone who doesn't have rich parents can't do that. And, it's no different.
Right.
I know at my old job, a billionaire was paying for his daughter's first album. Like, he's like, can you guys produce her album? And, not something that I could do. You don't want to hear my album, but any creative industry, if you've got rich parents and you got to drive to do it, it's much easier to do than if you're not, unless you've got extraordinary talent.
And what I would just say though is that if you then go over the credits list of Marvel and DC Comics, the people who've been there doing it for a really long time, regardless of how they got there, those people generally are in their place.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point.
Yeah, they'll stay if they're good, but it's easier to get. It's easier to get to practice. It's
yes,
they get good for practice, and it's easier to practice when you don't have to worry about working 9 to 5 and commuting.
Absolutely.
But
I just think that there is something, an ineffable quality that regardless of where you come from or what your deal is, that is going to actually make you like successful and have a career in comic book that's worth remembering. And I'm sure there's lots of books coming out of Image that you're like, how is this person making a living? I've thought that many times. I don't know, but it's not from selling 3,000 copies of a book.
Right. No one's writing Fantastic Four solely because they are wealthy, but maybe they got to the point where they wrote Fantastic Four because they were able to spend years not making any money, in the trenches. So
but they were in the trenches. They were working the shovel. They, whatever it is, like did the work, and I can't take that away from anybody. Good question. We're gonna move along. I think we stayed around from third rails there.
Morgan and Rowe, thanks for writing in. Contact at iFanboy.com. And I don't know when we're recording the Media Explode, but we have, you can always write it for a Media Explode show. Put Media Explode in the title. Our next episode is going to be a summer mailbag. I actually don't know when we're recording it, but you might still have time to get it in there. We should probably schedule that. Yes. So quick plugs. Our aforementioned Media Explode show came out about 2 weeks ago. Our Old Men and Old Movies, Pigs Who Got Married was the main topic. We also talked about Hitman and other TV shows and films. You can find that back in the feed. And then in between that show and this show and other shows, but also in the feed, Booksplode, our latest Booksplode episode. We talked about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 1. And we didn't announce it yet, I don't think, on this show, but we are going to do, in fact, if you listen to that show, Lone Wolf and Cub Omnibus Volume 1 as the next Booksplode. So if you're going to read along with us in August, we'll talk about Lone Wolf and Cub Omnibus Volume 1. So if you want to check that out, that's what the next Booksplode's going to be. Yes.
Talksplode's booked.
Hey!
It's happening. It's booked.
Well, look at that.
Yeah. So there's going to be a Talksplode coming up. I'm not exactly sure when we're releasing it. You probably know, but and these are always, you don't get to hear another thing about it until after it's recorded.
Talksplode should be coming out the last week of July. So the 25th. That's when it should be coming out.
Well,
and the Media Explode the week before. So, fun times. Busy summer. Yeah. You can find our library of 1,385-ish shows over at iFanboy.com, wherever you get your podcasts. All those shows are currently on the feed. You can find them all there. Follow us on iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. And sometimes, usually not as much in the summer, but sometimes Best of the Week in panels. You can follow us individually at CS Kilpatrick on Instagram and J. Flanagan on Instagram.
Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy, where you'll find our old video shows. We'll post this show every week as an audio delight. So you can subscribe there. It's the likes, whatever it is you want to do. Please consider writing a review or leaving a star rating on the various platforms with which you consume our products. Whatever you can do there, if it's a thing, hit a button, write a couple of words, whichever. We appreciate everybody who does that. Thank you all for listening so much.
Look at that.
I think
We're
this
pretty
was efficient. Yeah.
Pretty efficient.
I don't have time to go to the bathroom between now and the next meeting, but that's fine. Right. I had known that, so I'm just going to stay dehydrated.
Thanks for listening this week. Happy 4th of July if you're one of our mostly American listeners. And we'll
I recommend watching the second episode of John Adams. That's what you should watch. It's called Independence.
Thank you for listening.
Sense.
My name is
Josh.
Connor. Same time.
I came back around.
You're always the last guy.